Hello, and thank you for joining me again today on the Finding Hope After Loss podcast. I realize that today's episode is coming a day later than it normally does, as we usually release them on Wednesdays. But as many of you know, and maybe some of you don't, I do taxes for a living, and yesterday was April 15th, which was tax deadline in the US. So basically the last few weeks have been pretty insane. So anyways, that is just a little explanation about why this episode is a day late. So today's episode centers around a question that no one ever expects to ask. How do you survive stillbirth and keep going? Today I'm joined by Ashley, who shares her journey through unexplained infertility, fertility treatment, loss, and stillbirth. Ashley is a mom to 4 living children and 2 babies in heaven, and her story is about navigating grief while still showing up for the life and the family around you. We talk about the moment everything changed, the reality of parenting through grief, and how isolating it can feel when the world doesn't understand or doesn't know what to say. Hello, everyone. Today I am here with Ashley. Ashley, do you mind telling us a little about yourself?
Sure. I am 38 years old, actually going to be 39 this month at the end of the month. So excited about that. My last
Okay, I'm sorry
year
to
of the
interrupt,
40s.
but when is your birthday?
My birthday's March the 30th.
Oh my gosh, because I'm also 38 and my birthday is March 29th. So,
Really? Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
So don't
That's
mean to.
awesome. No, look how
Yeah,
that happened. Yes, I mean, our last year of the 40s.
I
So super
know.
excited. I mean, last year of the 30s before we're 40. So I'm super looking forward to that. Now, I have 4 living children. I went through 2 pregnancy losses. Actually, one ended in stillbirth. So I always say I'm a mom of 6, but I have 4 that are earthside and 2 that are angel babies. My husband and I have been married 11 years. It'll be 12 years in September. We actually started working on our family pretty early. We sort of were dealing with a little bit of unexplained infertility. And interesting thing is when we went to speak with a fertility specialist who sort of explained it as there's sort of a gateway for the sperm to reach the egg. And it just kind of seemed like I had just someone that was blocking the entrance to the gate. And for whatever reason, there was nothing wrong with me, nothing wrong with him. It just, we weren't getting to where we needed to be in order to make that happen. So 3 out of 6 of my pregnancies, we did use fertility treatments for. My first pregnancy, my son's 10 last year. He turned 10 in December. We actually got pregnant on our first round of IUI, which was really exciting. We didn't really know how that was going to work. We didn't know how many rounds we were going to need. And we did get pregnant on the first round. Our second baby, however, took us 2 rounds, and that pregnancy ended at 18 weeks for that pregnancy. It was just a chromosomal abnormality. There was no chromosome that was named. It was just that for whatever reason, this baby was not going to be able to survive. Did show up, thought that I was going to get a chance to find out the gender of our baby, and found out that the baby had no heartbeat. So that was our first sort of kind of wake up call that pregnancy is a little more delicate than people kind of make it out to be, especially when you're first getting married and you're, with a group of friends and everybody's starting to have children, and it just seems like everybody's, it's just a happy time. So to have that kind of enter into your life, especially when you're just only working on your second baby, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, everybody's going into work on, getting their baby a sibling, and ours just came to a halt. And so that was sort of really difficult to deal with. I think for me, just trying to figure out how to just navigate the situations where you want to be with friends, you're doing this with friends, but they're moving on without you. So how do you do that? How do you continue to go to the play dates where everyone's talking about double strollers and buying larger vehicles and handing down, clothes? They had a boy first, now they're having a girl. And so I'm going to give you my girl clothes and you give me your boy clothes. And it's just, it's such a happy time for them, and you were with them, but then all of a sudden you got left behind, and it's hard because they, have to tiptoe around you, but you also don't want them to tiptoe around you. And so then you're sort of in this isolation period. And so I think for me, that was really hard to navigate. And then also just internally thinking, do I try again, or do I just say, I've got one healthy boy. Let me just pour all my energy and all my focus into what I have, be grateful for what I have, and just let go of this dream of he's supposed to have a sibling. Does that is that something that, is going to hurt him and my relationship with him? Am I being a distant mom now? Am I detached? How is that going to affect him? That I'm just grieving day in and day out and day in and day out. And, how do I make sure I'm still showing up to be the happy mom that he deserves? And so that was a really, really hard time for us to kind of go through that. Fast forward, we had our rainbow baby actually after our third round of fertility treatments, going into it again. That round failed. Unfortunately, sort of what happens in the IUI process is that you have to time the ovulation just right. You get kind of that trigger shot. The egg drops, and then the IUI sort of happens. The insemination happens when that egg is being released. On my third round, unfortunately, the egg was released before the IUI happened. And it was really disheartening to hear the doctor kind of say, that round is over. There's nothing we can do about that, but you can try on your own. I mean, the egg is somewhere. We're not able to time it, but you can try on your own. And I was just, after losing a baby and just sort of putting all my energy into trying again, it was a lot to handle. We did try on our own, just sort of gave it one ditch effort, and then our rainbow baby was on the way. And that was just a pure blessing from God. There was really, no way else to even explain that. And so we had our rainbow baby. She's now 7. She turned 7 in January. And then we got a surprise pregnancy right after, well, during the COVID time in 2021. I had my daughter, who's now 4 years old. And then we had another surprise pregnancy just recently in 2025. And I was due in February, and just right after New Year's in January, I went into the doctor's office after not feeling any fetal movement. Thought I was in the nesting phase where you start cleaning, all over the place and getting ready for the baby. And I was organizing my kitchen, and I wanted, to start getting things ready in the nursery. And then that night, I was like, you know what? I haven't felt very much movement today. Could have been that I was just really busy, and the baby's been sleeping. Let me do all the things that you're supposed to do, drink the sugary drink something cold, turn on some loud music, and nothing. Like 12 a.m. is when I finally walked into the emergency room because I just didn't have a good feeling about it. And at 35 weeks is when we found out, unfortunately, the baby had passed. And that was really hard. I was right at almost the very end. Just had like a few, maybe 4 more weeks left. And we were supposed to be bringing our new baby into the household. And I'll tell you, I think both losses are very different for various reasons. Obviously, I was further along my second time around, but I had children that were old enough to understand. And I think that is what is a little bit harder when you've got the siblings that you have to explain to, who've already told their friends at school, I'm having a baby brother or I'm having a baby sister. Now you have to go back and you have to tell or explain to them, we're not bringing this baby home. And, well, can we get another baby, or can we try again? And so then there's this pressure, of I've got to figure this out, because now I'm grieving, the children are grieving. It was like a dark cloud over the household. Like our family was, we were in such a thick fog. And it's hard because it's only on me to try to figure out, how do I make this happen for everybody again? And I think it takes a certain strength to say, especially after losing 2 babies, to say, I'm going to try this again. And so you just sort of lean on to, whatever it is that you believe in, what kind of keeps you grounded, sort of in that time. And then I did get pregnant very soon after the loss. I lost our baby in January and I got pregnant again in March. Actually found out the day before my birthday of last year. And we did just deliver that baby in November. And so that was our second rainbow baby. So I have four healthy babies. And I say, I'm very grateful, very thankful, because I know that my story is probably more positive than a whole lot of other people's, even though I see, my story is sad to talk about. I don't like to talk about it at different times. But then I realize kind of when I do bring it up, I realize that there are people that this had, that have had to be affected by this in some way. Maybe they didn't lose a baby, but they know somebody who did, or their family member did. And that's when you really kind of realize, this can happen to anybody. Loss doesn't, pick just a particular person because, you've got bad eggs, or, your spouse or your partner's sperm is weak, or, there's nothing that, loss doesn't just come after a specific type of person. You can be healthy, you can have healthy children, and there could be absolutely nothing wrong. But then you go and you hear this, sorry, this baby isn't going to make it. And that's just something that I don't think anybody ever lets go of that when they have to hear that for the first time. That's something that just replays in your head just over and over and over again. And you can't really explain to people how that feels. And I've encountered some really great people who are like, just take it one day at a time. But then you sort of encounter some folks that are like, well, you've got these other children. So, and it's kind of like, they kind of want you to move on. Like, why are you still talking about this? Like,
But
you've
I
got
wanted
the,
those babies too. I mean,
yeah, exactly. I wanted those babies also. Like, I should have six of them here. And, I'm grateful for the four, but those babies, they still belong to me, and they were supposed to be home with me. And so, it's just been something that I think has been really heavy for me. It's just navigating the outside world. I mean, you can't lock yourself up, behind closed doors. And sometimes you feel afraid to say something out loud because you don't want to be shut down. But then you feel like you need to get it off of your chest because it's therapeutic sometimes to talk about it. But it's almost like finding the right person. And so you're sort of walking, from day to day, like, is this the right time to bring this up? That's been sort of weighing heavily on my heart. Ironically, for me, both babies that I lost were both supposed to be due the very same week of February. So February is really hard for me when both of those, babies were, should have been having their birthdays. We even said when I got pregnant in 2025 that this was kind of a redo. Like, we lost a baby in February, and this baby was also supposed to be born in February. So this is kind of like a redemption for us. And then we lost that baby too. So, February is just a really hard month, but you realize that even the people close to you don't understand. Like, if my mood is a little off, or, if I'm a little standoffish this month, I have to say out loud, don't forget that this is the month, and we shouldn't have to wear this on our t-shirts, or we shouldn't have to wave a flag that says, this is a hard month for me. And I understand everybody's busy and everyone's living their own lives, but this is what we have to live every single day. And, you don't want people to walk on eggshells around us, but, you really just want, somebody to kind of say, I understand, and I want to be here for you, and I know that it's hard. I'm just thinking of you, because you feel out of place in society after this happens. You really do. You feel like, I shouldn't be upset or angry because I do have these healthy kids. Am I allowed to be still sad? How are people, what are people going to think, or what are they going to say if I want to talk about my babies today, and people, they don't know how to react to that, and I'm not going to say I had a whole lot of close friends, but I don't have any friends now that I would say, that I could just meet up with and kind of talk and converse with. And I think that's sort of a shield that I put around myself to kind of protect my feelings and to protect me from, to me, it's sort of like inappropriate responses, in my opinion, or wrong words that were said out loud. I mean, when I lost my second baby, I had a phone call from a close family member that said, I often wonder why people have to die. But then I remember if people didn't die, then the world would be overpopulated and we'd have too many people on the earth. And I couldn't believe,
Like, and why are you telling me this? Like,
right. And so because there are way too many people on the earth, my baby had to leave. Like, who hand chose my child and said, "You're pushing us over the edge"?
yeah,
So yeah, so
that's
I've got to
ridiculous. That is a
eliminate, yeah.
ridiculous
Yeah.
comment.
And so, but then, when you stop answering the phone for those type of people, or you stop, going back and forth in communication, then you say, well, I don't know what I've ever done to her. Like, I don't know why she doesn't answer the phone. And so, it's really hard to gain real relationships when you really think about the effects of pregnancy loss or losing a child. You have your relationships change. They're not the same anymore. And you sort of realize, even moms who go and they sort of want to distance themselves from you because, like, all of a sudden it's contagious. Like, if I'm standing next to you, then I'm going to feel really bad, that I'm pregnant, and I don't want to be thinking about sad things during my pregnancy. And I get it. I mean, you don't want to have someone sort of rain on your parade. It almost seems like I don't want my pregnancy experience to be this sad part, that happens to people. But like I say, you don't want to say be careful, like I want you to know that pregnancy is very fragile, and at any moment things could take a turn. And, it just even changes your perspective when you see all of the big gender reveals and the huge baby showers and things like that. And then you go back and you're like, man, you've reached almost the very end of your pregnancy and you have to hear that horrible, your baby doesn't have a heartbeat. And now you've got all of these memories now of the ways that you announced this pregnancy is, with this, we're so excited for this baby. And you should be excited for your baby. But I think if I could say anything to anybody, just take it one day at a time. Enjoy the moment that you're in and take it one day at a time. I've unfortunately had friends reach out to me that had to go through the same. It was just me, like I was lonesome. I was the first person in any circle that this had ever happened to. And then now have spoken to at least 3 friends who have had to reach out to me and say, this has happened. And I wanted to let you know because I know you understand. And I'm like, it's not a club that I would want anyone to have to join. Like, it is not, I am so sorry that that has happened to you. Of course, I understand exactly what you're going through, but I hate to have have you join this with me. But again, you've got those same friends who didn't really know how to react to you when it happened to you. And you didn't want to say, like, hey, be careful. Like, this isn't something that, pregnancy loss didn't choose me. It happened to me, but it can happen to anybody. And I think that because it is actually, like, we're hearing so much more about it now, it doesn't mean that it's more prevalent. It just means that we're more open to talking about it. And, I even often say, like, coming up, my grandmother, is like, one of over 10 children, or, my father is one of 7. And when, women were getting pregnant back to back to back to back to back like that with stair step children, there had to have been at some point that some woman had gone through this. But you didn't hear about it. They didn't talk about it. It was something that, you kind of get over it, that, and you move on. But it's not fair to us. It's not fair for us to have to suffer through this silently, and for us to try to navigate what spaces we can be in where we're not hurt. What spaces can we be in where we don't have to worry about someone saying something silly that they didn't think about before they said it. And I think by speaking about it, at least, people who care about you or care about it will think twice, will hopefully say, oh, that's probably not an appropriate conversation to bring up around this particular person. And I'm not saying, you have to censor yourself when you're around a lost mom, but I think just being thoughtful and being aware, even saying things to me. And, and obviously when I lost my second child, I got pregnant, two more times after that. And then a third time after that. And I heard, I've had people say, do you know what birth control is? Or, you've had people say, oh, you don't need any more kids. Like that's enough.
What's
Um,
with these people?
yeah,
Seriously.
yeah. And so it's like, I don't know that that's ever appropriate to say to anybody, but it's definitely not appropriate to say to somebody who's, attended a funeral for, a baby that they were supposed to be bringing home in a car seat and, introducing to the family. I've always been sort of quietly grieving. I've always kind of kept to myself. I wasn't one who ever made any really like big social media posts to say, I've lost this baby and this is how I feel, and, get all of the comments of everybody saying, I'm so sorry. I didn't do that when I lost my first baby. And I announced that I was having the baby because I always say I was really naive after having my first son. I was naive in the way that, oh, you just get pregnant, you have babies, you come home, you live a happy life. And so I announced, oh, he's going to be a big brother. And when we lost that baby, it really kind of changed my perspective. And, after every pregnancy after that, I just didn't even tell anybody I was expecting. It just, to me, was something that was just so, it was like glass. Well, you have to hold it, just very carefully that it doesn't break. And didn't tell anybody anything about any of the other pregnancies. And even the baby that I lost, nobody, I mean, I carried that baby 8 months. Nobody had even known I was pregnant. And so I didn't need to say I lost the baby. Nobody even knew. But that's, an unfortunate sort of experience now that, I feel like I have to have as a lost mom to protect myself from, those around me who don't know how to react, who don't know what to say, who make me feel worse than I already do. And so I think that that's kind of, sort of the situation that we've landed in. I know when I lost my first baby, even I think that really it changed me personally. It changed obviously it changes everyone's lives when they go through something like this. But for me, it changed my relationships. It changed how I looked at people, how I viewed people, and I kind of took sort of everyone's reaction with the fine tooth comb. Like how, what did they say when I lost the baby? How did they treat me? Were they there? Were they not there? And it sort of carried, you know, through, all of my relationships from then on. And unfortunately, I mean, it'll be 8 years, 8 years, actually just this February. And those relationships haven't really been repaired. They haven't been mended. And I know that I have to get to a place where I can be honest and say, this is why I'm sort of keeping you at bay. This is why there's a distance or a gap or a space between us. This is why I can't get close to you, because I don't feel like you're somebody that is safe to be around. I don't know. I'm sure there are other situations where people who deal with addictions and things like that have to feel that same way. It's not safe to be around that person because they make me think of using or something like that. Like, I understand that there are other communities that go through these feelings. But for me, I know that it was hard when we first lost our baby because I don't think even our family around us, it was sort of the first time that had happened in our family on both my side and my husband's side. And nobody really knew how to react. Naturally, my family, we're just close knit and we drop everything and we show up. It doesn't matter what we're doing. If there's work or if there's anything, drop what you're doing and you go to that person. And so I was just very thankful. I think I had to check in, on that Friday morning, into the hospital. And I had to go on labor and delivery, just like everybody else. And you can hear, you can see the balloons and the flowers for the people who are welcoming their baby. And you can hear the cries and things. And the first hospital didn't handle it very well. They should have moved me to someplace else. But, everybody does things differently. I had to be on the same floor with everyone else. And luckily, my family dropped everything. They were there. There was somebody always sitting by my side. But I can't say the same for the other side of the family. My husband was by himself. I mean, he didn't have anybody there when we delivered the baby. He, broke down. My mom had to be there to kind of hold him. And it seems like they had other things. There was like a birthday trip planned, there was a shopping spree. There were parties and things that had to be attended. And so that really changed kind of my outlook on those relationships. Why was that so important for you to be doing at one of the worst moments in our lives? Like, we just lost a family member. To me, it's no different than if someone were to call you and say there was a death in the family and we need to rally around the people that are closest to the person that died. So it really just seems like, oh, it was a baby that she had met. She just lost it. She can move on and have another one. And so they didn't show up. I mean, I did confront it in a way where I was like, that was really sad, that you had chosen all of those things to do other than show up for us, and so that relationship with them just isn't the same. I try, to do what I can because we do have living children that need to know their other side of the family. But it is something that I think, unfortunately, for me, there is a barrier there where I just don't feel safe anymore. That, you've got to be better about kind of considering sort of what people are going through and kind of, navigating like they didn't mean it, they didn't know, but also too, like, do I need to say this out loud? I'm going into the hospital to deliver a baby that I can't bring home. This is, not something that you want to have to do multiple times, but, this is something that is now a part of our story. And we've got to figure out, what do we want to do? Do we want to have a funeral service? Do we want, to send the baby for testing to figure out what happened? You've got all of these choices in front of you. It's like, I don't even want to talk about this right now. Like, can someone else in my family sort of help with this part of it? You know how when you're right in the moment, you want to give things to other people that you can't handle. So you want people to be there. And so when you realize that there are people that just chose to do something else other than be there, it affects your relationships with them for a while, if not for forever. And for me, it definitely is something I've not been able to move past and I've been trying to navigate. And then unfortunately for me, I gave them a redo. I mean, like, lost another baby and, to give them the opportunity to do it differently this time. And I think they understood, sort of showing up. But, it's just all the things that you have to think about. That's not the loss itself, but it's like, how do, you navigate the environment and the world after it?
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, people think it's just you lose your baby and that's it. But yeah, it completely changes you as a person. I mean, as you said, your relationships. I mean, it changes literally everything about you. You don't walk away the same person that you were
Right,
before your loss.
right, exactly. Right.
So if you were to give like advice to somebody who's going through it, what would you tell them?
So I think that the main thing that I want people to know is that, like, you are not alone. Like, you don't have to carry this alone. And I know that's naturally what you want to do, is you feel like nobody's going to understand what I'm going through. Like, your heart literally is aching. Like, to me, it was one of those things where, like, if you bump your knee or you get a bruise, you want to rub it. But this is happening internally and you can't make it better. You can't rub it. You can't, put ice on it. There's nothing that's going to make that hurt go away. And it just gets worse and worse and worse by the day. And I would tell anybody, it may not get better, it may not get easier, but there are people out there that have been through this that could sit with you through it. There are people who haven't been through it, but they know, how to be with you in that moment. Just you have to, just find an outlet from somewhere, find an outlet and don't lose hope. If you're somebody who's like, I don't think I could do that again. I mean, I have friends that say, I could never put myself through that again. Like, that was something that I don't think I would ever survive if it happened again. And so I'm not even going to try again. And coming from somebody who has had multiple pregnancies and pregnancy losses, and I've had a stillborn baby and tried again, it's something where I think if you find, whatever you believe in, if you find something to hold on to give you hope, then, use it. Do it every day. If it's a book that you read, if, for me, it was the Bible, and praying. If it's a certain person you can talk to each day, my advice is just don't do it alone. Don't do it alone. You have to find some way, to have an outlet, someone that you can reach out to or something, because you're not alone in this. This happens to so many people. And there are so many people who just don't want to talk about it out loud, for whatever reason. But this probably has happened to your next door neighbor. This may have happened to a cousin of yours that just hasn't said anything about it. It happens all the time. And we have to know that we are not alone.
Yeah, and I don't know why we all think that we have to try to endure it alone. I mean, but that
Right,
is like the natural tendency where you're like, well, this is just something I have to deal with, so I'll just,
right,
and yeah, we
right,
don't have to, but it takes sometimes a lot to see that.
right. Exactly. Exactly. Right.
Do you do anything special for your babies, like on their birthday or due date or anything?
So I am sort of still kind of trying to process I mean, even 8 years later, still trying to process my feelings around the day that I delivered the babies, but also the day that they were born. Because, like you said, I mean, you feel like it's an isolated thing, like the world stops, but they don't realize, why you're frozen. And so both of our babies are buried at a local cemetery. And we've got a really sweet funeral home here that does a free service for lost moms. And it's called Interment Angels, and they get, a couple of months. So, if you've lost a baby between like September, October, and November, then they have one service where all of the moms can come. And then all of the babies are buried in the same place. And so that's where I try to revisit on Mother's Day, and then in February when they were supposed to be born, and then on their days that they actually delivered them, just to sit. And there's a really nice statue there that talks about, how moms are strong and how we go through things, but we don't lose hope. And so just having just a special place where you can go kind of clear your thoughts a little bit and just really focus on, what you've lost, but also knowing sort of a little bit of the joy and even having them for even a short time, because people can't tell you how to feel. And even if you try to say, something to them about it, they can't, they may try to make you feel better. But at the end of the day, when you go and you're with your own thoughts, that's how you can process things best. And so that's what I do.
I love that they do that. I mean, especially
Yeah,
it creates kind of a sense of community there too by having those all together. Like you see that, you're not alone, that there's all these other
exactly.
families that have gone through it too.
Right, exactly. Our last funeral service was standing room only, and that was sad
Wow.
that so many moms had to experience that, and that there was not even a place to sit because so many moms had gone through. And that's when you kind of look around and realize, like I said, like, man, this happens to so many people. Because unfortunately, when you lose your baby and you're in a community of moms who are having babies, you feel like you're the only one. You really do. And then you go and you're like, man, these are like complete strangers to me, but they're going through the exact same thing as I am. And they, they do the service for babies no matter if they're 6 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever. And so you can stand there and like, okay, I had an 18-week and a 35 weeks, but there's somebody who had a 40 weeks. And so I'm standing next to someone whose pain may even be a little deeper than mine. I'm standing with someone who maybe this is their fourth time doing this, And so everybody's story is different. And you just know, even for myself, like I guess I could say I'm very hard on how people react in certain situations. But I know for me, I also have to be careful because now, where it was that I was the only person, now I do know people who have gone through this. And I know that I have to censor myself a little bit because their loss is different from mine. Even though we both lost a baby, their experience how far along they were, how connected they were, how much they prepared. I mean, everything affects how you go through this sort of situation. I know for me, when I had my losses, because I had been through it the first time, my second time, I didn't do a whole lot to prepare. I hadn't bought, clothes. I hadn't bought, strollers and things like that. So when I lost my baby, there wasn't anything around the house that was reminding me of the fact that we were going to bring this baby home. But then there are other moms who are like, it's therapeutic for them to buy the things. They need to stay positive about it. So they need to have the baby showers and they need to have the gender reveals and the announcements. So everybody's different. But I think the way that you treat the person, or even just sort of stopping to think about what you say before you say it, and even sometimes just showing up in the moment. Like, you don't have to say anything, just showing up,
Yeah.
being there, I think is important. And to know that, like for my losses, for my second loss, I had a C-section. And so that's even harder. So you come home and for 6 weeks, you're feeling the pain of being sliced open, but there's nothing to show for it. Like I'm not also taking care of a baby at the same. I'm just sitting in a chair, just feeling like nothing right now. Like I feel like nothing. I'm in pain and I feel like nothing, and just knowing that there were, people that just wanted to call. Like you just call and you just say something silly and then you hang up. And it's like, but don't forget, like I've also had a C-section. So my mobility is limited. And I have these other children I've got to care for. So even showing up to say, like, I know that you can't, lift right now. Or, you may not be able to cook a full meal. I'll bring food over for you or something like that. And it's not just to call and say, something silly like our world is overpopulated and then you hang up the phone and you never hear from them again.
I,
It's like it's just it's it is what it is, I guess, when you say things like that. And just to know that like I sometimes feels unreal that I'm the person that's sitting here with this story, like this happened to me, like me. You don't want to say why me, because there's some testimony in it, I guess, that you can be able to share with other people to uplift them.
Sometimes it's hard
It's
to
just
not do the why me.
it is hard to not do that. And I've done that plenty of times, especially when you're around other people who are, bringing healthy babies into the world over and over and over again. Like you didn't even try. You just, like got this baby and look, they're there. And, we worked hard with our fertility treatments and then, everything. And then to know that throughout our process, like we weren't able to bring two babies home is hard. And I even had sort of a mom in my daughter's preschool class when we lost our second baby, sort of reach out and say that she had been through it. She'd had two miscarriages and then she'd had a stillborn baby. And she just wanted to reach out and say, hey, I've started this blog that you can read. I also have these journals that I have, sort of this website that you can go to. I've got a lot of resources. You can reach out to me if you need anything. I've been through this before. I know how you're feeling. And my response to her was, thank you so much. We unfortunately have already been through this before. And so I do sort of know how to navigate this, although, every loss is different. And unfortunately, I'm sad that I have to do this again. But, I'm familiar with this process. And then I never heard from her again. And so I think there comes a time where it's like when you go through this, you want to sort of validate it by saying, I can help other people. Like, I don't know why this chose me and I'm sad, but I feel better when I can be a resource or helpful for someone else. And I feel like in that moment, that's maybe what she was sort of thinking, like, okay, the loss that I felt is, it feels better that I now can help this other mom. But this other mom's saying she doesn't really need the help, because she had already been through it. And so now I need to move on and find somebody else. Because I mean, I even saw her at pickup. I saw her at events at the school and she never even looked my way. And I'm like, so if you were going to be helpful or a resource, you have to at least make contact with the person. And so that was strange to me. And then I have to kind of remind myself, I know that people thrive or people, they feel better when someone who is going through what they've been through can lean on them a little bit, because then it makes you think my loss wasn't in vain.
Right.
Like, I know that I've gone through this, and this, this is a part of my story now, but look what I can do for other people. And that makes me feel like, like my baby is, worth something to someone else. You know, and maybe that's what she was doing, just sort of going through and saying, oh, here's someone else, and this is going to make me feel good. And I wouldn't have been opposed to even still having conversations with her, but I just didn't get a response. It's like, I'm so glad that you reached out, that we can make this connection. This is my second loss. Unfortunately, I've been through this. And then there was no more communication after that. So it's like, again, you open yourself up to someone, you tell them what you've been through and what your story is. And then unfortunately, you're not aware, or you're not ready for whatever the response is going to be. And then I just kind of go right back into my shell. Like, this is why I don't talk about it. This is why I don't share, what I share, because I've opened up to you and I don't really do that very often. And then you've gone off into the wind and never to be heard from again. So, and then you're like, this is why I feel isolated. This is why I feel alone. This is why I don't feel like, I can really walk through this with other people.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean,
It is.
yeah, it is hard to open up. And then, especially when, like you said, you do, and then the response is that it's like, well,
Yeah.
why would I
Yeah.
keep trying? I mean, if we're just going to get the same end result, might as
Yes,
well just do it by
exactly.
myself.
Right. You either get a response that's not appropriate, or you get someone that's just like, well, I don't know what else to say now. So, hopefully things get better for you. I've got to run.
Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's just recently that I've kind of decided, whatever the result is going to be, whatever the response is going to be, it makes me feel better to kind of open up and say, like, hey, we're here. We're living amongst you every day. And you can either acknowledge that we're around you and, be respectful in your conversations, or not. But at least I've done my part to kind of say, hey, there is a growing community of people who are going through this, and we're not going anywhere. And it doesn't matter if the baby that we lost is turning 9 this year or turning 25 this year. That pain is still there. It's never going to go away. And so, it's not, well, it's been 4 years now. So, it should be fine for me to say something like, you need to use birth control. Like, nope, it does not matter how many years have passed for you to tell me, or, to say I should be preventing myself from bringing any more babies into this world. And I've been robbed of 2 of them, is kind of silly. And so me speaking out is more so to say, hey, the person you're sitting right next to could be internally going through something that they're afraid to talk about, and so maybe just really think before you speak, maybe kind of be a little bit more delicate in your relationships. And you're not obligated to, if you're somebody who this doesn't affect you at all. I know that I would do it in other communities. Like I said, if someone was dealing with something that, is really a really sensitive topic for them, and I would try to, censor myself, or to make sure I'm not saying anything that's harmful or hurtful or disrespectful. But I feel like in this community, a lot of times we don't get that same sort of respect. We don't get that sort of acknowledgement of, this is a really, delicate situation.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there. There's something different for some reason about losing a baby versus any other type of problem.
Exactly. Exactly. Even with the doctors. I mean, my last pregnancy, where I just delivered my baby in November, I've got quite a chart. Like, I get it. Like, when you come in and you're, speaking to me as a patient, and you're going over my history, it is quite long. It's rather long. I get it. But I've had this one nurse practitioner that would walk in at least 2 or 3 times, and she's looking for the baby that I lost. And I'm like, but I know that that's in my chart. Like, I know. And, she's like, even when I went to my postpartum checkup, and I've got this baby that's here, that's healthy. And she's like, but you had 2 close together. Like, where's the one that you just had, like, in January? I'm like, that baby died.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh,
And
read
this is the
it.
third,
Please
yeah,
read
this is the
it.
third time that I've had to tell you that. Where, it's like, oh, the first time she's like, oh, you got pregnant so soon after. So you're going to have two really close together. That baby is no longer with me. And you work in a doctor's office, in an OBGYN's office. And I know there are women that come in here with these stories over and over again. And yet still, you are not aware that your questions are hurtful. The way you're not reading my chart is hurtful. How you're busting in the room and just saying the first thing that comes to your mind.
Come
It's
on.
just, yeah, it's it's like, I mean, again, it's everywhere you go where you think this should be a safe space. Like people come in here and go to ultrasound rooms and walk out a changed person. They come in here and they hear something that changes their life for forever. And it's probably the worst thing that, I mean, I feel so awful for ultrasound techs a lot of times where they're the first person that has to detect there's an issue, and they've got to look at you and say, I've got to go get the doctor. Any time that they say, I need to get a doctor, you already know, like, okay, something is wrong here. And, you go to an OBGYN's office that, you're like, this should be a safe space for me. They should know. Of all people, they should get it. Women walk in here happy and they walk out completely broken. But yet and still, you can go in there and get somebody like that who acts like they've never experienced someone coming in with a chart that says they've lost a baby. And then you wonder why we feel like we're alone. Like, am I an anomaly here? Like, am I the only person who's gotten my babies taken away from me, abruptly with no, warning? It's just a sad situation to know that when you go out in public, you've got to always have a guard up. It's just a really, it's a sad situation to be in, and we've got to figure out ways that we can cope, ways that we can protect ourselves, and in that way, it's kind of like an armor that you put on, like, oh, don't let that one get you. Oh, she didn't mean anything by that, so don't let that one hurt you. Like, oh, don't worry, it's going to be okay. You're going to forget that she said that tomorrow. Like, it's something that we have to figure out.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. We shouldn't have
Yeah.
to, but it's where we
Yeah.
are,
It's where it's where we are. And it's just so crazy in today's society that, people still don't understand that this is happening to people,
Yeah.
and that they have to figure out a way to sort of treat them or react to them.
Yeah, it's people need to do better is all I can
They
say.
do. They do better, right? Do better.
So is there
True.
anything else that you'd like to share or add?
No, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, I'm praying each day for, anybody who's having to go through this silently, for anybody who's even is experiencing a pregnancy after loss. Like that's probably the most anxiety you'll ever face. I mean, it's, every day you wake up, you want to just pray that this is a day that you can get through where everything is going to be okay. Even up until the, time that you deliver that baby. I mean, I brought a baby home in 2 months, still, it was like an unreal feeling that I'm able to even go and buy things. Like, moms out there that, can prepare and prepare and prepare because it makes them feel good. And I'm someone who I waited for 2 months, after bringing that baby home to say, I'm going to buy this baby some clothes. Like it just is one of those things where you kind of go through, this feeling of, have I reached the end or not? And so I just say, to anybody, like, hold on to hope, stay strong and find someone that you can sort of lean on or something that you can hold on to get you through it.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for sharing your story with us. I just want to remind you that when people say the wrong thing, or maybe they don't know what to say at all, that they're not trying to hurt you. A lot of people just don't know what to say, they don't know how to show up, and they just want to fix it for you. And it's okay to show them what you need and what you want them to say. One small thing you can do is say, you don't have to fix it. Just being here means a lot. Or even, it simply helps when you acknowledge my baby and say their name. It's okay to tell people what you need. If this conversation meant something to you, please consider sharing it with someone who might need it or leaving a quick review on Apple or Spotify. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we are all in this together.